You're listening to the Multifamily Mentor Show.
My name is Terrence Doyle.
And I'm Chris Lopez. You probably know us from the BiggerPockets Real Estate Ride Along Show. Well, now we're talking everything multifamily. We bring in top industry experts from around the country to come join us in our Denver studio for an in-depth, in-person conversation.
We're going to be diving deep into deals, underwriting, raising capital, and everything in between. Join the conversation. What's going on, everybody? I want to fill you guys in on today's episode because it's a little bit out of right field. We had Gino Barbaro and his wife, Julia Barbaro, on the show. So they made a special trip to Denver, Colorado, and it was a huge honor to interview him. I've been reading his books, watching his podcast, seeing him on BiggerPockets. I mean, this guy is just a beast in the space, done some amazing things, and I was super excited to interview him. And so for the second episode today, his wife, Julia, was able to come in to the studio, the Verco office, along with all of his children and his mother-in-law. And so while the episode is not like nuances on real estate specific items, Gino really goes into background on, what motivates him, his relationship with his wife, and relationship with his kids. His daughters are starting to source deals for him, and the coaching and the mentoring that he's been doing. And so I really got a lot out of it. I'm married, I have a family. I'm constantly having tension between, wanting to spend more time at the office and on projects and work, but also wanting to live life with my family, my children, and my wife, and what that balance really looks like. And so just seeing Gino and his wife interact, seeing how they communicate well together, seeing how they've been able to complement each other for their marriage and also for their business was like really inspiring and touched me in a really big way. And honestly, this was one of my favorite episodes of the entire season, just because of that dynamic of, me being married and having these kind of similar conversations with my wife. I think that the audience is going to get a lot out of it, whether you're single, dating, married, have a family, don't have a family. I thought that there was so many golden nuggets in the episode, and I'm really excited for you guys to check it out. So share it, like it, smash the follow button, and make sure that you pass it on. I thought that, some of the wisdom that Gino and Julia share is like really, really valuable, and I hope you guys get as much out of it as I did.
What's up, BiggerPockets? Welcome to episode 2 of the Multifamily Mentor Show with Gino. We're going to talk about mentorship, and we have his superpower in the flesh, in the studio with us. It's gonna be a great episode. Before we jump into it, make sure you hit the like button, leave a comment. We'll see you in the comments. Terrence.
Here we are. It's snowing outside. It's warm and cozy here. We have an amazing couple, and I'm really excited for you guys to share your story. Planned on just having Gino on, but then when we learned that his superpower was here, his wife, Julia, we had to have both you guys on. So I think it's an amazing thing just for the audience to see a super healthy marriage, people supporting each other, loving each other. I don't know how many kids, seems like 8 children or something. a lot of kids, mother-in-law. You guys are traveling in an entourage, and it's really warmed my heart just seeing you guys together and how you guys compliment each other. So welcome to episode 2.
Thank you so much.
Guys.
Thank you for having us.
So one of the things we want to highlight, and one of the things that sticks out to me, as I saw you speak this last weekend, was just the number of people you've touched, right? You've done multifamily, you've made a bunch of money, very successful investing business. But one of the things it seems like you're very passionate about is coaching, mentoring. This show's called the Multifamily Mentor Show. Something Chris and I really believe in is if you want to grow, you got to have a coach and a mentor. So talk about how that started, how you've been able to build this incredible track record of coaching people.
Do you mind if I go real quick?
Go for it.
So for me, it started back in 2008, like I referenced on another show. I was stuck. I wasn't growing. I read T. Harv Eker's book, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. And in that book, he kept espousing responsibility. And you see the children's book, we have the Responsible Rhino now. And everything starts with responsibility. If you can't take responsibility, then you can't take responsibility for your actions. You can't create a plan. And once I took that responsibility, my fruits are my roots, I said, what's the next step? I need to find somebody doing what I want to do. You either pay to play or you seek to serve. Remember that.
Wow.
You're either paying a mentor or you're going out there and you're finding a mentor and you can add a ton of value. I was working full time. I had the restaurant at the time. So I said, what's my next step? I'm listening to Jim Rohn. I'm listening to Norman Vincent Peale, Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, all of them. But I wanted to get to multifamily real estate. So I went out and I started looking for multifamily coaches. And from there, the next iteration was, all right, I've got a couple hundred units. Why am I doing this? What's my big why? Went into life coaching. I got my certification as a life coach for extra personal development to learn how to teach people how to ask those empowering questions, to become a better listener. I wasn't a good listener.
Wow.
Listening is a powerful skill. Not many of us know how to do it. I didn't know how to do it. And I wanted to learn all these skills with that personal development. And for me, it all starts with that education. Then from there, traction, scaling up a business, went to scaling up, speaker coaching, and now I'm singing opera. As we had said before, I'm singing a little O Solo Mio. Maybe I can rip a couple lines and embarrass her a little bit. But
it'll go viral. I mean, once you do that at the end, it's going to go viral. So, Julia, thank you for joining the show. I'm really excited to hear, what you're doing in life coaching and about the show you guys have together. But maybe take us back to New York, the pizzeria, the restaurant, and how you guys met, and what Gino was like back in the day.
Yeah,
give us some dirt.
I was working at this little pizzeria in Mayapack, New York. It was called Tony's, and here comes my husband, now my husband, and his family coming to buy the restaurant. I'm like, oh brother, another Italian family to come over and take over. And I met his father and my father-in-law. It turned out to be my father-in-law first, and I had this good sense about him. There's something good about him that it just wanted me to be there, and so that it transformed to him. So, but over the years, we dated a few years later. We got married. We have 6 children, not 8. But my husband would like to have 8, but it's okay.
Right.
But I did watch him.
It's not too late. It's not too late. I'm just prophesying.
I'm not as young as I used to be. My kids want more, which is a good sign. But I watched him go from being excited about the restaurant and working hard and loving it to just slowly, he would come home tired and looking down and just being kind of not depressed, but just, he wasn't loving it like he used to. He was looking into real estate, and I did encourage him. It did take away some time away from us, but I saw the spark in his eye when it came to real estate. And so I'm like, go for it, And the day he came home, we were talking about before, he came home just looking completely defeated. And he looks at me, he's like, what if I sell the restaurant? What if we sell the restaurant and move to Florida? He's like, I just need a break. I need somewhere else. And I saw that in him. And that's one of the things that we talk about as a couple. He's living his life working. I'm living, we have 6 kids, we homeschooled, we were home, and we were working hard as well. But you have to see each other. You have to communicate with each other. If he's having a rough time, we need to talk about that and find a solution. And he came up with one. It was selling and moving away from everything we knew, everything we
all
loved.
Your families,
everyone
your
was just familiar. Everything was familiar. To go somewhere we didn't even know anybody there.
So this is a tip for everybody. She made that commitment to me. She said yes to me. My commitment to her was I'm going to work as hard as possible to make this happen. Mm-hmm. So once you make a commitment to each other, you need to put the work in, because a lot of work came in, a lot of lunches, a lot of working late. So she put trust in me. So that gave me the ability to say, I need to really work hard at this and not make any excuses.
That was something that I want to point out is, we were talking about Amazon. Amazon packages are at our door all the time, and they're all his books that he reads. He educates himself, and I saw that. And when you see your spouse working really hard, he's not coming home from the restaurant, sitting there watching TV, kind of playing around with his friends. He's working. He's trying to educate to get something, and that was the real estate. And I saw that in him.
She's supporting.
So I did have that trust. I saw he was going to work for us. He wasn't going to, worst case, we had to move back home and with his mother-in-law. So I knew he was going to work hard.
So that's a great tip there. I mean, some of the people that reach out to me are like, how do you get your wife on board?
Yes.
How do you get your wife on board? How do you get her to encourage you? How do you, Terrence, how did you get your wife to allow you to work these kind of hours and build the business you have? And I think that's a great point, is my wife's not seeing me, going out with my friends every night. I'm not, like you're talking about, sitting in front of the TV all day. She's like,
or video games now.
Yeah, video games. Yeah, exactly. You're like online, She's like, no, man, I see what you're doing. I see you love it. You want to support you. So I think that is a tip for everyone is, if you want to get your wife on board, show her that you're committed. Yes. Show her like you did, you're willing to put in the work, because she's going to want to support you.
Terrence, do you mind if I make an analogy to this?
Yeah, absolutely.
August 30th, 1998, we get married. That's the day she becomes financially free. I've got to work.
Right.
So when I told her I want to get into real estate because I want to become financially free, to her, she was already financially free. Paint the picture to your spouse. What does that mean to you, to her? To me, it means that I can come down to Denver on a Friday and go to a wedding and hang out with you two guys in the studio. It means that we can donate to all our charities. It means that I can have impact, that I can start the Jake and Gino community, that I can buy something for my mother-in-law and let her rent the house. I can donate, whatever that looks like. I had to paint the picture to her, live 300 feet from the beach. If you don't do that to your spouse and you don't share your vision, it doesn't mean anything. So for me, I put all that out there and I said, this is what I want to do. This is what it looks like to us. And I think she fell in love with the vision.
Too, when you're talking about this, one of the biggest issues I think that couples have, and we had it, we were terrible communicators. We really were. You have to actually ask for it. You have to ask for support. Because a lot of times we don't ask, we just assume you're supposed to give it to me and you're not giving it to me. Something's wrong. I don't know, my marriage is falling apart. We have to say sometimes, would you be willing to give me support? I need help right now.
Wow.
We don't ask that. And it's such a simple concept that we forget. We just assume that they should know what we're feeling, that they should know what we're thinking about, but we don't.
It's an amazing marriage step. Yeah, just communication, being vulnerable,
it's huge.
asking for help, because I agree. Sometimes I'm like, babe, don't you see I had a hard day? Like, why aren't you supporting me? But it's like, if I just say, hey, can you support me for the next couple of days? I really need some help. Like, there's a couple of things going on. My mind is distracted, I do think communicating clearly your feelings, because sometimes, you're feeling things and you think that the other person just automatically assumes that or knows it just by looking at your face. But communicating it verbally and asking for help is a great tip. This is kind of like a marriage counseling session right now. I'm getting a lot out of this. I love this. I've only been married 5 years and I'm getting a lot out of this.
I want to ask you guys, you said you weren't good communicators, and then you talked about getting the same page for like goals and vision. What was the structure of that? Because that can be very hard in the day-to-day. Hey, you're going 100 miles an hour, you're juggling 6 kids, going 100 miles an hour, everyone's busy. Do you do a planning weekend? Do you have a structure? Like, how did you start communicating on there? Take it away from yourself.
So for us, our lives are so intertwined. When we homeschooled, when I was at the restaurant, I would school in the morning before I went to work for like 45 minutes. I did geography, I love maps, I did math with the kids, and I'd go to work, and then she'd be doing work at the house. And then the real change came when we decided to write a cookbook together. That's when everything changed. Our lives took a year. Now we can write a cookbook in a month, but back then, when you don't know what you're doing, right? It's not who, it's how. We were thinking about the how, and we did it. And I think we really fell in love with working with each other. I at least did at the time. I thought it was awesome. We got it because I could actually tell her to do something. She was so confident she can do anything. You let her do anything, my tech, cameras, lighting, anything, she can do it. So for me, I felt comfortable working with her. I like spending time with her. And for us, even starting the podcast, I told her first, let's do the podcast. She's like, I'm not too sure.
Well, about the podcast, let's go there for a second. So just a little something about me. I was terrible. Just terrible around people. I was so scared. I would say 2 people was my limit to talk in front of. I was really uncomfortable around people. He said a podcast. I'm like, no way, right. And I thought, but why not? Because someone said to me at one of his events, I just want to tell you that just you being here means a lot to me, because his wife was there, and he's like, it's nice to see a couple. He's like, would you ever do something together where, maybe a talk? And I'm thinking, my gosh, no way. I would never talk in front of people. But he asked me, and I think that's when it comes to a marriage and your husband is asking you to do something, it's out of your comfort zone, but he has confidence in you. He has respect for you. I had to say yes, and I had to prepare. I had to prepare for it. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to have to practice. I'm going to have to prepare what I'm going to say. And I wanted to help people. I wanted to help couples know that, yes, you can work with your spouse. You don't have to. I'm not into real estate. I really don't know anything about real estate, which is the funniest part of it.
She still doesn't know what cap rate is. Cash on cash return. It's okay.
You don't have to know everything. Right. Yeah. And that's the beauty of working with your spouse, is he does what he's good at. I do what I'm good at. We don't crisscross. We're not competitive. We are competitive, but not when it comes to work.
And not with each other, right?
No,
it seems like you're really trying to complement
together,
each other,
and
right?
that's the beauty of it. Is you have the same goal, and if you're working at the same goal together, you're not going to crisscross. Yes, you have the little arguments here and there, but one of those things is you have to let go of the things that really don't matter.
Right. Chris, to specifically answer your question, what I would do is have every family member sit down and create core values. Running a family and a business are very, very similar. You have a mission statement and you have core values. And if every family can do that, you live by the core values. And one of the core values of every family, especially married, is long-termism. You want to be married for the long term. So if me and her get into an argument, Are you going to break up over one argument? No, because you're in it for the long term. So actually fleshing out those core values and trying to live with them is really, really important. I think the other thing that you should do is just put it on the calendar. Yes. If you have date night, put it on the calendar. If you vacations, put it on the calendar. We were at the event last weekend on Saturday, went to David's event. Afterwards, we went to Disney. Never would have done that 10 years ago, but I'm like, you know what, we're here, let's make something special out of it. So always thinking to incorporate the family and thinking that the family unit is just like the business unit. They're very, very similar in running it. You need to put time, effort, dedication, and love and passion, and both of those entities will flourish.
Yeah, the calendar is huge. I just want to point that out because usually you're like, all right, Friday night we'll go out to dinner. Friday night comes, the kids are tired. When something goes up, it's like, oh, whatever. But we share a calendar. We're different colors, of course. But when we go out, we got to go out. And we figured this out 24 years into marriage.
It's a little while.
But that's okay.
Yeah, better late than never, right?
Those are great tips. I never thought about, the family analogy to a business.
100%.
I like that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Talk about the transition from being a full-time mother, homeschool teacher, to life coaching and working with your husband. Because seems like one of the things you're very passionate about.
It seems like the same thing. To be honest, I feel like I've been a life coach my whole life. I just didn't realize it.
I was actually homeschooled, so I can appreciate that. My mom, English was her second language, and she taught us till 7th grade, and it was insanely difficult. But when I went to public school, I was reading much faster and doing math way faster. It was insane how much ahead I was just from having that one-on-one. Because you never realize that you're like, why am I not at school with friends and having, I was going to Columbia every year, but I didn't appreciate it until I went to public school and saw how much further ahead I was than everybody else. And I was like, wow, my mom knew what she was doing. So it's a major sacrifice, but it's a huge investment in your kids. So I can appreciate how incredibly impressive it is to do that, especially with 6 kids. So talk to us about life coaching and how that maybe it's been the same and what that's like for you.
Yeah, so I was full-time home. I was home with the kids. The kids never went anywhere. I never had a babysitter. My mom would come over and help me out once in a while. But once the kids turned a certain age, so our youngest is 7 now, she was probably 5, I realized, you know what? I'm actually just sitting here for the first time ever drinking coffee.
And she's teaching the phone?
Yes. Like, what am I doing? But the big moment for me was when I went to hear him talk. It was 2017. I heard, we went to a real estate conference and he was giving this beautiful talk. I thought he did a great job. I didn't really want to go, I'm going to be honest. It was snowing out, we're up in New York.
2.5 hours for a 45-minute drive. It's typical New York traffic.
But
during the holidays.
I got there, I was like, all right, I'm here, kind of was irritated. But afterwards, there was a few of his students that were there and they came up to me and they're like, Julia, I just want to thank you. I'm like, oh, okay. Your husband changed my life. I'm like, oh, okay. And one of them had tears. It was a big deal. And I thought, holy cow, what does my husband do?
Talk about listening. She never listens.
Changed my life. Yeah, what's he doing with these students?
He's talking to these people and I'm like home upset. And I thought, that's amazing. And I saw the impact that he had on people. And I just wanted that for marriage because marriage is so incredible and it's so beautiful and it's getting distorted in the world. Mm-hmm. And I wanted just, even if we could touch a couple people out there, and we did, and it's been amazing. And that's why we do it. That's why I do it. So yes, I do still homeschool the kids. 2 of them one has graduated, one's still in college, but we're busy, yes. But his students, his Jake and Gino students, if they need help, I will be on the phone for them. Wow. I will, because I know it makes a difference in the world, and that's incredible. What I'm after.
So Gino, talk to me, you're in multifamily. Where did the desire come? You were getting coaching, and then what was it like? Instead of growing a multifamily business and maybe adding another 3,000 units, what was the decision? Because that's something, I'm really passionate. I love telling stories, I love meeting with people, and I love building, I love buying real estate. But how did you make that decision to focus on? Because it seems like one of your big passions is this coaching, training, mentoring. So what was that shift and that decision like?
I got lucky because when I was in New York, I moved down to Florida in June of 2017. Our portfolio is in Knoxville. And I'm thinking, hey, I want to buy stuff in Jacksonville, but it's $70 a door. Everyone's, you're crazy, prices are high. So I didn't buy anything. And I sat there, I said, what am I going to do? I'm financially free. I'm not the beach type. What am I going to do down here? I don't have anything to do. So I said, let's write a book, Jake. Mm. We wrote a book. We started the podcast in October of 2015 and it just trickled along. So I said, let's start teaching. Let's start doing these weekly podcasts, get these guests on. And I liked it because I would prepare. It made me a much better investor. Remember, you learn, you do, and then you teach. and then you do keep doing that circle, you get really, really good. And it's been a long process. I thought in the beginning to monetize education. Let me make money by selling videos and all that. That's the wrong thing. You really have to be into it to help others. The more value you create, the more money you make. If you're not chasing money, but you're chasing opportunity, that's what ends up happening. And I really started to enjoy it. And I started seeing people succeed. And I started shifting from the abundance, from that scarcity mindset, to the abundance mindset, as Garrett Gunderson calls. And all of a sudden I saw my sole purpose is, this is what I really like to do. I like to talk about real estate. I like to life coach. I like to grow businesses, and I like to have amazing employees. So I started Jake and Gino with that foundation to be able to teach my employees about real estate, to have them invest in our deals, and to have everybody in that entity focus on multifamily. And I want to continue to write kids' books, because my goal, my slogan is people with financial intelligence can change the world for the better.
Right.
And if we can teach people financial intelligence, I mean, that's not what we're being taught in public schools. That's
Financial literacy is one of my biggest passion things. It's one of the things I want to start a trade school, right? Is teaching kids in high school that they don't have to go to college and get in debt. If you learn a trade, be an electrician, a plumber, a carpenter, or a realtor, right? If you can, all these skills and you perfect it, take something you're good at, become great, you can build incredible wealth for yourself if you just learn that, right? The power of compounding interest. What is a credit card? What's a HELOC? What is interest rate? What does an interest rate actually do? What's interest only on a loan look like? And how does that impact your ability to have more cash flow to reinvest it? And all these things are really powerful. I grew up in a family, my dad didn't go to college. His parents were from Canada, right? They worked at the same company. Back in the day, you probably remember this, they worked at the same company for 40 years, right? So it's just, you show up every week, you get a paycheck, and it's just the monotony. No one's thinking about building wealth or owning real estate. I mean, my brother and I like to share a story. We lived in the same home all the way, from the time we were born till I went to college. My parents just sold the house maybe like 6 years ago. But we would drive around and we would see buildings, but you never thought, because the way I was raised, we never thought we could own that. Now we're in Des Moines and we're like owning buildings that we grew up like going to at church, and we grew up like next to the mall, and we own them now. And so just that mental shift of understanding how money works, that this is attainable. That's why we're doing the show. We want to be able to pass on what we've been able to do, and I've been able to do with my family and this company and everyone here, of, hey, you can do it. Let me show you, let me document the process so you can do it. So you see that you can get the confidence and the hope and the vision. That's like, you can, because I think if you can see, I'm the kind of, if I can see someone do it, I can go do it. If I just watch you do one thing, in my mind, I'm like, okay, I know how to do it, right? And so it's like, if we can document the process of showing people, here's what's possible, then they can go do it. You know what I mean? YouTube's a powerful platform. You can learn almost anything you want if you apply yourself like you have, Financial literacy, I think, is something that we need to be, and I love that you're doing that, we need to be talking about more. The fundamentals from like your kids at the age, like the young kids, how do you use money? What is money? It's a tool. It's a tool to do what? To grow, to own assets, to create opportunities, so that you can do what you're doing with your family here. You're rolling in a 15-passenger bus, right? Traveling with all these people, you know what I mean? Like, that's an amazing thing. But in order to do that, you had to understand money.
Yes.
Right? Because if you're just living paycheck to paycheck, you could never do that.
Yes.
So that is something that I love, and it sounds like that's maybe what ignited you to be doing Jake and Gino coaching, and kind of take that life coaching.
We're reading the book Who Not How, and in the book they talk about the Pygmalion effect. I don't know if I got this exactly correct, but the Pygmalion effect talks about you rise or get lower to the peer group that you're around. Right? So I wanted to create a peer group with Jake and Gino. That was amazing. That proximity is so important. So when you can do that, when you can create that group of people, all ships rise. And that was what my focus was with the community, and that's what my focus was with families. If you can go around and surround yourself with like-minded people, create that community, whether it's a church community, whether it's a business community, you can really elevate that level.
One of the things you're doing too, which is really incredible, is that he brings us to his events, and the kids do work there. They sell shirts, they sell water bottles, and they see all of what you're just talking about. And so they're exposed to it, and it's part of their life. And I think we can all do that. Most of the years ago, it was like your father went to work and you didn't even know what he did.
Right,
you know
totally.
what I mean?
Yeah.
But we're in the middle of everything he does, and it's helping them. I can't even.
Your kids are
it's
coming
unbelievable.
when they get a little older, we run around here for
Like, what's their impression? Like, what do they say? Because I've got kids. I got a 2 and 4-year-old, younger than your kids. Like, What's their reaction to go see dad up on stage or they're selling them?
Well, the older ones are like, dad's not cool. The younger ones like, click on the link down below. And the young ones already doing Jake and Gino. She thinks I'm cool, the younger one. The older ones are like, dad's not cool. He's like a restaurant guy. Who's listening to this guy? You know,
he's the pizza guy.
You know,
they thought it was cooler that he was a pizza guy.
Yeah, exactly. On stage, they've been seeing this for the last 5 or 6 years. They're immersed in the community. So they were in the office yesterday with all the workers, all the employees. So I want them to be part of the core value. When everyone looks at our brand and they look at the Jake and Gino brand, Andrew Cordell told us, he told me on the podcast, what's that one word that would explain what your brand is? Yours is probably value. I love that word. My word for Jake and Gino would be family. So when everyone thinks of Jake and Gino, it's a family, it's a community. So how does that happen? I want the kids to be part of it, and I want them to be immersed in it. My son's 19 years old. He's got a 6-figure net worth. He invested in a deal 2 years ago, told him not to buy an amplifier. He wanted to spend $5,000 on an amp. I said, Mike, put that 5 G's into a deal. 2 years later, and he's talking about refining, he's talking about owner draws, he's talking about economic occupancy.
Wow.
That's all from investing in a deal and telling them to delay instant gratification. And now it's not how much money we make to go buy something, when's the next deal coming? So that's the power of having your kids around. Your language becomes your experience. If you talk to them about cap rates and about money and about an opportunity and not about just bills and expenses, but how you actually live an abundant lifestyle, their mindset is completely shifted, it's completely changed. So that's why you need to have your children around you.
And you have Sophia, our 16-year-old, sending him properties constantly.
Every day. She's on the Zillow.
She's like,
Dad, now I sent him over a property. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So she'll look at him, and she understands that, and because it's interesting, because he makes it interesting.
It wasn't like us driving by and saying, well, who owns that? She's like, she already knows that we own property, and she's already in that mindset.
Everything's possible.
Yeah,
She's like, hey, I can go get this. That's amazing. Right?
That's so cool.
To start at that age is amazing.
But that's why we wrote the children's book, The Cannolis Exploded, because it's basic. The kids read it. It's something that happens. What are you going to do about it? And you have these 3 characters. One of them is very responsible. One of them, he's a pig. He's a pity party pig. He just complains the whole time. And the other one is a creative caterpillar, where she thinks outside the box. And so you have choices. When kids go through difficult times, it's not just one answer. There's many different paths you could take. You have to choose which one you want to take. And so that's why we want to keep that going with the younger generation.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So I've gotten so much value out of this, honestly, like just seeing how you guys work together, collaborate, how you're supporting each other, how you guys are trying to teach and train the next generation. How can people talk about your podcast together? You guys are rebranding it. It's going to be Julia and Gino, right? Her name first. Julia and Gino. Julia, it's very important.
Yes.
The sequence of words there. Julia and Gino. So talk about the show. Talk about how can people find you guys to learn more about what you guys are doing.
We created this podcast because my husband would talk about business all the time. And I'm like, it is just like running a family. It's the same thing. He's like, no, it's different. I'm like, it's the same thing. So I talk about relationships in the family. He talks about business. We kind of, we mix it up a little bit. I try to avoid multifamily on the podcast, but it always comes in. But we do talk about the difficulties.
I have to talk about a little bit of real estate.
It's all relationships.
Right.
Relationships in the business and at home, in-laws, cousin, anywhere. The relationships, because we all struggle with them, but they're all similar. We can all, so we talk about that. And then as far as where can they get a hold?
Just go to the Jake and
JakeandGino.com.
Gino channel on iTunes. Go to JakeandGino.com. It's called the Multifamily Zone right now, but we're rebranding it because we had a guest named Ken. What was his name? Oh gosh. Frank McKinney was on, and really big real estate guy in South Florida. And we got him on. He's talking about relationships. He's been married 30 years. And he's like, anybody can teach cap rates, cash on cash. There's not a lot of people out there teaching about relationships and teaching about impacting other families and showing that. So when he said that, I'm like, okay, Multifamily Zone doesn't do it justice. We got to change it to the Julia and Gino show. And it's funny because she had the idea 6 months ago, but I was really stubborn about Julia and Gino. I was going to watch the Julia and Gino
It's a
show.
perfect example of a marriage. Wait and put the idea out and wait.
That was the right answer.
It was his idea.
It was
And then
her
it's
idea,
wonderful.
She heard it here first. I should have actually changed it sooner, but I was stubborn.
No, but in a marriage, the most important thing is to respect each other, to love each other. Yes, we disagree. We have arguments, but so what? We all have arguments, and I think that we have to look at what's important.
Get over this. So the last tip I'll say is, you can get into an argument. We have something called levels of energy. You can be a victim, and you can stay at victimhood for an hour, 6 days, a week. You can blame her. You can go up to the next level, which is anger. You're in a catabolic state. You're really negative energy. Anger is good. They're not either good or bad, but it's good because it can get you out of it. Then you get into the anabolic state where it's responsibility. Well, maybe I was responsible for the argument. Then you get into the concern state, which is level 4, where you're like, you know what? How can we get over this? How can we work together? So you have to be conscious every time you have an activity, whether we get on a podcast, I was late for the show, I closed the deal. We have those energetic responses to every single action we have in life. Just be conscious of it and take responsibility for the actions. The hardest thing for me was I'd get into an argument, I wouldn't say sorry. Just say sorry. And to your kids, I'm telling you, but just say sorry. I mean, to my children, the best thing you can do to your kids is show them that you're fallible. Yeah. Show them that you make mistakes and say sorry to them. And you'd be surprised. Most parents won't do that because it's very hard.
That's right. So fundamentals of marriage, life coaching, mentorship, and just so many valuable lessons on training children and financial literacy for the next generation to empower and change the world. I love that. Chris, any closing thoughts?
No, I love it. Thank you guys so much. I took away stuff. Hopefully our viewers did as well. Viewers out there, make sure you like the video. No, smash the video.
Smash the like button. Make sure you pass it on to your friends and family. Share it with everyone that you care about. There's so much gold here. Smash it.
You're listening to the Multifamily Mentor Show.
Join the conversation.